there's a moment you don't forget. He looks at you, not like he's scanning your face for features or flaws, but like he's trying to memorize you. Like the air between you could collapse if he doesn't hold this gaze a second longer. He laughs a little too hard at your joke. He touches the rim of his glass absent-mindedly when you smile. And you think, is this real? Does he feel what I'm feeling? And that's when it starts. The wondering, the analyzing, the late-night internal debates with your pillow about every little thing he said, every emoji, every pause in conversation. But here's what no one told you. When a man is truly crazy about you, he doesn't always say it outright. He shows it in subtle, surprising, and sometimes downright confusing psychological ways. Ways that feel like mixed signals but are, in reality, deep emotional cues rooted in desire, vulnerability, and an overwhelming need to protect what he fears he might lose. And today we're going on a journey, not just into male psychology, but into the parts of the male heart that are rarely spoken of. The real reasons behind his guarded texts, his spontaneous affections, and those moments when he seems both drawn to you and scared of his own intensity. This isn't a list, it's a mirror, a map, a revelation. And by the end, you won't just know the 6 tricks, you'll know how to see through them, how to tell when they're genuine, how to protect your own heart, and how to navigate the dance of attraction without losing your power. So lean in, because this might just change everything you thought you knew about love. There's a funny thing about human behavior, especially when love enters the equation. We think we're rational beings, that we choose who we love and how we act. But psychology tells a different story. It tells us that the moment emotional connection is involved, people start behaving in irrational, often involuntary ways. And for men, that behavior is amplified when they're emotionally invested. A man who's deeply into you, who's not just casually attracted but crazy about you, will begin to show what I call psychological leakage. These are behaviors that slip through the cracks of his polished persona. They aren't premeditated. They aren't conscious manipulations. They're the product of his inner emotional ecosystem, trying to deal with the rush of feeling, vulnerability, and hope that comes with truly wanting someone. Let's start with the first one. It's so common that most women overlook it completely. But once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never see it the same way again. First, he creates inside jokes and private worlds. At first glance, it seems cute, harmless. He gives you a nickname. He calls you something no one else does. He references a random moment the two of you shared, like the time your umbrella broke in the rain and you both laughed like children. Over time, these inside jokes become threads between you, pulling you into your own private little bubble. But here's the psychological layer you might miss. When a man is crazy about you, he begins to construct a shared reality. This isn't just flirting, it's claiming emotional territory. Creating a you and me against the world narrative, even if it's light-hearted, is a sign that he's not just interested in passing time with you. He's trying to build something with emotional permanence. A world where he feels safe. A world where he matters to you, and you matter to him. It's no accident that soldiers in war zones, under intense pressure, form deep bonds with their comrades. Shared experiences create intimacy, and a man who's falling hard will subconsciously manufacture those shared experiences through inside jokes, personal language, and small rituals that only make sense to the two of you. Think about it. Why would someone go out of their way to create a language that no one else understands unless deep down they're afraid of being just another person in your life? Second, he mirrors your emotions, but not always consciously. Have you ever noticed that when you're sad, he gets quieter? Or when you're excited, his energy lifts too? This isn't just empathy, this is mirroring, one of the most powerful unconscious indicators of emotional investment. Mirroring happens when someone subtly mimics your body language, speech patterns, or emotional state. But in men who are emotionally invested, it often goes deeper. There's a historical example that illustrates this perfectly. During World War II, British codebreakers were able to crack German messages, not just by analyzing the structure of the code, but by understanding the patterns of the people writing them. They noticed emotional patterns, anger, urgency, fear that slipped into the messages, revealing what was really happening behind enemy lines. In much the same way, when a man is deeply into you, his own emotional messages begin to carry traces of your emotions. He becomes emotionally attuned in a way he might not even realize. If you're anxious, he can't relax. If you're happy, he lights up. Why? Because your emotional state matters more to him than he's willing to admit. It's no longer about his comfort, it's about the emotional weather between you. When a man mirrors your emotions unconsciously, it means your presence is already rewriting his internal code. But let's go even deeper. When a man starts to fall for you, his brain experiences changes that mirror addiction. Studies using fMRI scans show that men in love display activation in the same brain regions associated with intense cravings. Dopamine spikes, oxytocin, the bonding chemical, starts to flow, and with it comes a psychological need to regulate connection. This is why 1 minute he might seem distant, trying to manage his feelings, and the next he's texting you about a random memory you shared. He's trying to self-soothe with your presence, and that brings us to the third trick. The third point is he tests you emotionally without realizing he's doing it. Here's where it gets confusing. One day he's warm, vulnerable, telling you things he hasn't told anyone else. The next he pulls back. Maybe he responds slower, maybe he cancels plans, and suddenly you're left in the cold, wondering what changed. But what's happening isn't about you, it's about risk. Men, especially those who have been hurt before or taught to guard their emotions, often test the emotional waters when they're getting in too deep. Subconsciously, they create scenarios to see how you'll react, because part of them is terrified of being too available, too vulnerable, too exposed. Let me tell you a story. In the early 1900s, a Russian psychologist named Ivan Pavlov conducted a series of experiments that changed the way we understand human and animal behavior. Most people remember him for the famous bell and dog experiment, where dogs began to salivate not just at food, but at the sound of the bell that preceded it. But what fewer people know is that Pavlov also observed what happened when patterns broke, when a bell didn't lead to food. The dogs experienced confusion, anxiety, even distress. They wanted to understand the rules of the game again. Now imagine this in the realm of dating. When a man starts pulling away after showing closeness, he's often in his own Pavlovian experiment, except you are the bell, and connection is the food. He's testing whether showing emotion will lead to rejection. He wants reassurance but doesn't know how to ask for it, so he creates confusion, hoping you'll chase him and prove it's safe to feel what he feels. It's not manipulative. It's psychological armor. And if you don't recognize it, you'll take it personally and start changing your behavior in ways that make you lose your own emotional boundaries. But here's the key. When a man is crazy about you, he doesn't just want connection, he wants certainty. He wants to know that what he feels is safe to feel, and until he knows that, he might unconsciously sabotage moments of closeness just to see if you'll reach back out. This doesn't mean you should always chase him, but understanding this trick for what it is, a cry for safety, not disinterest, can help you decide how to respond without losing your self-respect. The next point is, he tries to fix small problems in your life because he feels powerless over the big ones. There's something almost primitive about this one. When a man is in love or falling, he begins to see your life through a different lens. He notices the way your shoulders tense when you're stressed, the way you talk a little faster when you're anxious, and he wants to fix it. But here's the catch. When the emotional stakes are high, most men feel out of their depth. Love isn't something they were trained to navigate. Many weren't raised to express feelings or sit in emotional vulnerability. So what do? They fix what they can. Your leaky faucet, he's on it. Your car needs an oil change? He'll remind you twice. You mentioned your boss was rude today? He starts suggesting how to respond. And while this can be helpful or annoying depending on delivery, it's not really about faucets or oil changes. It's about emotional anchoring. By solving a small problem, he feels closer to you. He feels useful. He feels in control of a dynamic that, emotionally, makes him feel wildly out of control. Think back to ancient tribes. Men were hunters, protectors. Their value came from action, from solving, building, guarding. And while our world has changed, the psychology hasn't. When a man is crazy about you, he often expresses it in acts of service. Not because he thinks you need him to survive, but because he needs to feel like he's contributing something of value. It's his way of saying, I see you, I care, I'm here. If you dismiss those small acts, you might miss the bigger message. Let's pause here, not to stop the story, but to reflect. If you're watching this thinking, but he doesn't do these things or he used to, and now he doesn't, then that's part of your answer. Consistency matters. Real love shows up. Not perfectly, not always predictably, but it shows up with emotional investment, behavioral shifts, and a deep desire to create safety, intimacy, and joy. The tricks aren't really tricks at all. They're symptoms of something deeper. And as we continue, I'm going to reveal 2 more powerful behaviors that expose the truth behind a man's feelings, even when his words say nothing at all. Because sometimes silence speaks the loudest love. And so we continue deeper into the human maze of male emotion where actions often whisper what words never say aloud. If you've come this far, you already sense it. The truth of how men love isn't always loud. It's rarely obvious. It hides in shadows and surfaces in ways even he doesn't fully understand. When a man is falling, truly falling for you, he doesn't just act differently, he becomes different. And what's most compelling isn't how he treats you when everything is going well. It's how he responds in the quiet moments, when the air is thick with uncertainty, when the stakes begin to rise. Love doesn't show itself in grand gestures alone. It shows itself in tension, hesitation, in those subtle psychological tricks he can't quite control. Let's continue this journey by diving into the fifth behavior. This one's layered, complex. At first glance, it may look like insecurity, but underneath, it's something far more vulnerable and infinitely more human. The next point is, he gets jealous, not of other men but of your emotional world. It doesn't always look like the jealousy we see in movies. He may not act possessive. He may not even mention another guy's name, but pay close attention. If a man is genuinely crazy about you, one of the most powerful yet misunderstood psychological shifts he'll experience is jealousy, but not jealousy of who you spend time with. Jealousy of what you give your attention to. You tell him you're excited about a new project. He goes quiet. You share something funny your best friend said. He nods, but there's a flicker in his eyes. You seem lit up from something that has nothing to do with him, and suddenly he seems off. Now why is that? Because men, especially emotionally invested men, tie their self-worth to their perceived role in your life. And when they feel they're not the center of your emotional gravity, a silent psychological alarm goes off. He doesn't want to own your joy, but if he's falling for you, he deeply wants to be part of the reason it exists. And that jealousy, it's not about control, it's about connection. It's a signal that he sees you drifting emotionally towards something that doesn't include him, and his subconscious mind starts panicking. What if she doesn't need me? What if she's building a world where I'm just an extra? Let me tell you a true story. In 1959, psychologist Harry Harlow conducted one of the most controversial experiments in attachment theory. He separated infant monkeys from their mothers and gave them two options, a cold wire mother with food or a warm cloth mother with no food. The result shocked everyone. The monkeys overwhelmingly chose comfort over sustenance. They chose warmth over survival. Now imagine a man's emotional world when he's falling in love. He becomes one of those monkeys in a sense, not in weakness but in instinct. He doesn't just want logical compatibility, he wants emotional sanctuary. And when you light up because of something or someone else, and he isn't part of that, a primal fear awakens. Will I be enough? The trick here is not in how he expresses jealousy. It's in how you read the subtle shifts in behavior that tell you where his heart is pointing. Watch what happens when you celebrate something that doesn't involve him. Does he distance? Does he try harder? Or does he seem both proud and a little emotionally removed? That tension is his vulnerability talking. That is the mark of a man who feels deeply and fears, maybe for the first time, that he has something to lose. And now we arrive at one of the most confusing and contradictory behaviors of all. It's one that has made millions of women feel lost, heartbroken, and misled. And yet, when you understand it through the lens of psychology, it all makes sense. The last one is, he pulls away just when things feel deeply connected. It's the cliché you've heard too many times to count. He got scared. And maybe you've rolled your eyes at that phrase thinking, isn't that just an excuse for emotional immaturity? But what if I told you that this psychological trick is not only real, it's practically hardwired? And what if I told you that a man pulling away when things get close isn't always a red flag of disinterest, but a smoke signal of emotional overload? Let's look at this through a historical lens. In ancient Greece, warriors returning from battle were often kept outside city walls for several days before being allowed to re-enter. The reasoning: their nervous systems were too overloaded from combat. They needed time to decompress, to uncoil from the hypervigilance of war, before they could rejoin society. Now imagine a modern man, walking through life with walls built high from past heartbreak, societal expectations, and pressure to be a man. He meets you, and something in you bypasses all his defenses. Suddenly, he feels seen. Not just admired, but understood. And for a moment, that intimacy becomes overwhelming. Not because he doesn't want it, but because part of him never believed it was possible. So he pulls back, not because the connection wasn't real, but because it was. Real connection activates all the dormant fears a man has tucked away, the ones he never shows anyone. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of being fully known and then rejected, the fear of surrendering control. Psychologically, what's happening is this: the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain, tells him this connection is good. But the amygdala, the emotional response center, screams danger, because love has been wired to mean risk. And so, just when he feels the deepest pull toward you, his unconscious brain says, protect yourself. He doesn't ghost you, but he becomes vague, less available, confusing, and you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you did something right. You touched something he wasn't ready to confront. And here's where the power lies. If you chase him, he never learns how to resolve that fear. But if you hold your space, if you stay grounded in your self-worth without closing your heart, you give him the opportunity to meet you from strength, not fear. Let me leave you with this. Love is not just a feeling, it's a threshold. And for many men, especially those who have lived armored, self-reliant, or emotionally restrained lives, that threshold is terrifying. They may use these tricks, jokes, mirroring, hot and cold behavior, acts of service, quiet jealousy, pulling away, not to manipulate you, but to survive their own vulnerability, to navigate the unbearable beauty of loving someone who could actually matter. And that is why the deepest truth of this entire journey isn't about the tricks at all. It's about your wisdom, your ability to see through the confusion, to understand when a man is simply managing his emotions poorly, and when he's genuinely not ready. To know the difference between a man who's afraid because it's real, and a man who disappears because he never intended to stay. Because you deserve love that shows up, not love that plays hide and seek. So now we've uncovered the 6 core behaviors, 6 psychological shifts that reveal when a man is truly crazy about you. But we are not done, not even close, because the next chapter is even more important. Now that you see these signs, how do you respond? What do you do when he mirrors your emotions, but still hasn't committed? When he shows jealousy, but never says what he feels? When he pulls away and leaves you wondering if you should wait or walk away? In the next part of this journey, I'll guide you through that exact path, how to navigate the emotional terrain of a man's growing feelings without losing yourself, how to become the lighthouse, not the lifeboat. Because the greatest power you will ever have in love is not in getting someone to fall for you. It's in knowing how to stand still while they rise to meet you. Let's return to the moment we left behind, the threshold. Because now, it's not about whether a man is crazy about you. It's about whether you are grounded enough in your own self-respect to know what to do with that knowledge. The signs are useful, but without wisdom, even the clearest signals become confusion. Here's where most people falter. They recognize a man is into them, but they don't know whether his feelings are a path forward or a detour that leads to nowhere. Because even when a man is truly captivated by you, mirroring you, showing up for you, aching with quiet jealousy, pulling away out of fear, it doesn't always mean he's ready. And this is where the conversation must evolve beyond, does he love me, to something far more powerful. Is this relationship safe, mutual, and aligned with my self-worth? Because here's the truth. Men can be deeply into you and still be emotionally unavailable. They can obsess over you, dream about you, ache for you, and still not show up the way you deserve. So let's talk now about you. What does self-respect look like in the face of inconsistent affection? What does self-worth sound like in the middle of emotional ambiguity? And how do you stay in your power when every part of you wants to decode his heart? You hold the frame, not the fantasy. When a man is crazy about you, his energy will fluctuate. Sometimes he'll be fully present. Sometimes fear will take the wheel. And when it does, you might feel the urge to compensate, to become his therapist, his cheerleader, his emotional detective. But here's the secret. Love doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to become more you. Let me take you back to a historical example. Queen Elizabeth I of England, a woman courted by princes, kings, poets, and yet she never married. Not because she wasn't in love, but because she refused to surrender her identity to a role society demanded of her. She reigned with grace and brilliance, all while being pursued endlessly. Why? because she held the frame of her life. She never outsourced her power to a suitor. Now imagine you doing the same, not by shutting down or pushing men away, but by choosing to stop contorting yourself for connection. When he pulls away, you don't chase, you center. When he gets jealous, you don't shrink, you clarify. When he mirrors you, you don't become addicted to the validation. You enjoy it, but stay whole without it. This is emotional maturity, and this is what keeps powerful women from becoming emotionally bankrupt in the pursuit of love. What if you're the prize, and he needs to earn you? Let's flip the script. Instead of analyzing if he's showing signs of being crazy about you, ask, is he making space for your values, your boundaries, your dreams? Is he creating emotional safety, or is he subconsciously inviting you into his chaos? Because here's the hard truth. Some men are so captivated by your light that they want to possess it, not honor it. And you must be able to tell the difference. Let me tell you a true modern story. A woman named Lena had been dating a man for 6 months. He did all the classic things, texted every day, gave thoughtful gifts, talked about the future, but every time she got closer emotionally, he'd withdraw slightly, enough to make her feel confused, enough to keep her reaching. She thought, maybe he's just scared. Maybe if I prove I'm safe, he'll open up. So she gave more, she softened more, she compromised more. And one day, he left, not because he didn't care, but because he never felt ready to match the emotional depth he had pulled from her. She became the emotional provider, he became the emotional consumer. And here's the kicker. When he left, he said, "You were just too good to be true. I knew I'd mess it up." That wasn't a compliment. It was a confession of emotional inadequacy. And Lena, she was never the problem. She was the mirror that reflected what he couldn't yet become. So if you find yourself chasing clarity, feeling like you're giving emotional CPR to someone who keeps pulling away, hear this now. Love that drains you is not love. It's dependency dressed in desire. Real love isn't proven through tricks. It's revealed through consistency. The signs we've discussed, mirroring, joking, acts of service, jealousy, emotional retreat, these are all clues, but they are not confirmation. They are hints, invitations, potentials. What matters most is how a man sustains those behaviors over time, especially when life isn't convenient, especially when emotions run high, especially when you're not giving 100% effort. Does he still show up? Does he still speak your name with care even when the honeymoon energy fades? Does he still make you feel emotionally secure, not just emotionally stimulated? That's the difference between attraction and devotion. And you're not here to settle for chemistry without commitment, for feelings without follow-through. You're here for the real thing. So let me ask you something bold. When was the last time you stopped asking, does he like me, and started asking, do I even like who I become around him? Because the real test of a man's love isn't how he feels about you, it's how he treats you consistently. Even when the initial fire dies down, let him rise to meet you, or let him fall away. Here's the paradox of love that most people never master. The moment you begin to hold yourself with such deep self-respect that you no longer need someone to prove their love, is the moment you become irresistible. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally remembered you are not a puzzle to be solved. You are a standard to be met. A man who is crazy about you but cannot meet your emotional depth may still try to hold on to you. But if you hold steady, if you stop over-explaining, stop over-giving, stop managing his experience, and start honoring your peace, you give him the rare opportunity to step into his power. And if he can't, you let him go, without bitterness, without drama. Because you are not in the business of convincing someone to grow, you are in the business of being loved in full. In closing, here's what you must remember. Love is not earned through effort, it is revealed through alignment. A man who is crazy about you will show it, sometimes through flawed, imperfect ways, but over time the truth becomes clear. If his love brings more confusion than clarity, more anxiety than peace, more hope than reality, then it's not love you're experiencing. It's emotional limbo, and you were not born for limbo. You were born for devotion. So don't chase the trick, watch the pattern. Don't decode every word, read the storyline, and don't lose yourself trying to understand a man who hasn't yet understood himself. Because the most powerful move you can ever make in love is to stay rooted in who you are. Let the men who are ready rise to meet that standard. Let the rest fall away with grace. And remember this, when a man is truly crazy about you, he won't just show signs, he'll show up. Every time. Without needing to be chased. Without needing to be fixed. Without making you question your worth. And when that man comes, you'll know, because it won't feel like a test. It will feel like truth. If this video gave you clarity, strength, or that one aha moment you've been waiting for, don't forget to hit that like button. It tells us to keep bringing you more powerful insights like this. Subscribe if you're ready to build unshakable self-worth and attract the love you truly deserve. And drop a comment below sharing the moment in this video that spoke directly to your heart. Your story could be the spark that helps someone else reclaim their power too. Or